It has long been my observation that murder does not always begin with hatred. Sometimes it begins with knowledge. The events I am about to recount occurred in the late spring of 1934, when Hercule Poirot and I were invited to the country estate of Lady Margaret Ashbourne in Surrey. The occasion was to be a modest but refined weekend gathering, a charitable gala in aid of war widows. There would be music, speeches, a display of rare antiquities recently acquired by her ladyship, and, or as Poirot noted with satisfaction, an opportunity, mon ami, for the observation of human nature at leisure. The Ashbourne estate was precisely the sort of place one imagines when thinking of English nobility determined to preserve dignity against the slow erosion of modernity. White columns framed the entrance, trimmed hedges stood to attention like silent sentries, and beyond the lawns the glass conservatory gleamed beneath the afternoon sun like a crystal palace. We arrived at 4 o'clock. Poirot, immaculate as ever in dove-grey suit and polished patent shoes, surveyed the facade with narrowed eyes. "It is too symmetrical," he murmured. "Surely that's a good thing?" I said. "For architecture, yes. For the human soul, rarely." I was about to press him on this curious remark when the front doors opened and Lady Ashbourne herself descended the steps to greet us. She was a woman of perhaps 50, tall and elegantly severe, with silver-threaded dark hair drawn back from a high brow. Her eyes were intelligent, cool, and faintly amused, as though the world were a puzzle she had nearly solved. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, extending a gloved hand, "you honour my home." "The honour is mine, Lady Ashbourne," replied Poirot, bowing with continental precision. Her gaze flicked to me. "Captain Hastings, we are most grateful you both accepted." There was, I thought, something unusual in her tone, an undercurrent, like a tremor beneath polished marble. But if it existed, it was masked almost perfectly. Almost. The gathering. The guests were already assembled in the drawing-room. Sir Alistair Brooke, a financier whose ventures in South Africa had brought him both wealth and whispered criticism, stood near the fireplace with a glass of sherry. Miss Evelyn Marsh, Lady Ashbourne's private secretary, slim, pale and observant, sat by the French windows, her fingers resting tensely upon a leather portfolio. Dr. Lionel Cartwright, an urbane physician with silver spectacles and a voice cultivated for reassurance, examined a bronze statuette displayed upon a velvet pedestal. And finally, Mr. Julian Trent, Lady Ashbourne's nephew and sole heir, leaned against the mantel, handsome, restless, and possessed of that careless charm which so often conceals impatience. There were others, minor acquaintances, charitable committee members, but it was these four whom Lady Ashbourne presented to us with particular emphasis. "An intimate circle," she said lightly. "We prefer to keep our affairs contained." Poirot inclined his head. "Mais naturellement. Containment, it is a virtue." Her eyes met his, then, held them half a second too long, and something unspoken passed between them. I noticed it. So did Poirot. The display. At 6 o'clock, the guests gathered in the conservatory for the unveiling of Lady Ashbourne's newest acquisition, a diamond necklace of considerable historical value, and said to have belonged to a Russian duchess before the Revolution. It shimmered beneath the gaslight, cold fire captured in platinum. Sir Alistair whistled softly. "Worth a king's ransom, I imagine." Lady Ashbourne smiled faintly. "Some things are worth more than money, Sir Alistair." Dr. Cartwright adjusted his spectacles. "One must hope it remains well protected." "It will," she said. "I have taken precautions." Again, that tone, that curious private certainty. Poirot stood slightly apart, his head tilted, eyes half-lidded as though listening to music no one else could hear. "What do you make of it?" I whispered. "Of the necklace?" "No, of her." He did not answer at once. "Lady Ashbourne," he said at last, "is a woman who carries a burden." "A burden?" "She believes she knows something." "What sort of something?" Poirot's gaze shifted to the guests. "The dangerous kind." The Cry dinner passed without incident. Conversation was lively, though at moments I observed Miss Marsh watching her employer with unmistakable anxiety. Julian Trent drank more than was wise. Sir Alistair grew expansive in his opinions. Dr. Cartwright remained courteous and impenetrable. At precisely 10 minutes past 9, Lady Ashbourne rose from the table. "Forgive me," she said, "I must fetch a document from the conservatory safe." There was nothing remarkable in the statement. Yet I saw Poirot's eyes sharpen. She departed alone. 5 minutes passed, and then came the scream. It shattered the evening. Chairs overturned, glasses fell. Miss Marsh turned deathly white. Julian cursed and bolted for the door. We reached the conservatory within seconds. Lady Ashbourne lay upon the tiled floor, the great diamond necklace scattered beside her like fallen stars. Her eyes were open, her throat marked by the unmistakable imprint of fingers. Strangled, dead. Miss Marsh collapsed against the doorway. Sir Alistair muttered something about summoning the police. Dr. Cartwright knelt at once, though one glance was enough to confirm the obvious. Julian Trent stood frozen, staring at the body. Poirot alone did not move immediately. He surveyed the room. The glass doors were shut from within, the side windows latched, no sign of forced entry. The only key to the display safe lay beside the body. "A closed circle," he murmured softly. I looked at him in horror. "You mean—" He nodded. "Yes."
"It's Hastings! The killer is here!" The final words. As Dr. Cartwright gently closed Lady Ashbourne's eyes, Miss Marsh suddenly gasped. "There was something," she whispered. Poirot turned sharply. "Mademoiselle. Before dinner, she told me—" Her voice trembled. "She said she had decided at last." "Decided what?" Miss Marsh swallowed. "She said she knew who it was." A silence fell over the conservatory. "Knew who what was?" Sir Alistair demanded. "The killer," she breathed.
And Julian let out a harsh laugh. "What nonsense! No one's been killed until just now." Miss Marsh shook her head violently. She said, "Tomorrow it ends. I know who killed him." "Who?" I asked, but Miss Marsh covered her mouth. "She didn't say, only that she would expose the truth." Poirot's expression did not change, but I saw it, the faint tightening at the corner of his eyes, the flicker of the little grey cells igniting. "Ah," he said quietly. "So."
"It's the woman who knew the killer." He stepped forward, examining the position of the necklace, the angle of the body, the faint scuff mark near the door. "But she did not know," he added softly. "How quickly knowledge can become fatal." Outside, somewhere in the darkened gardens, a night bird cried. Inside, the circle had closed. And though none of us yet understood it, the murder of Lady Ashbourne was not the beginning. It was the consequence. Poirot did not hurry to the telephone with the others.
While Sir Alistair went to summon the local constable and Dr. Cartwright spoke to a maid, my friend moved about the conservatory as though the dead woman were merely another disorder that must be set right. He crouched near Lady Ashbourne's right hand, palm up beside the key, and indicated a faint smear on the gilt bow. "Grease," he murmured, "not from a lady's glove." Julian Trent, white-faced, snapped, "What does that matter?"
Someone attacked her and ran." Poirot's eyes lifted to the glass doors. Ran? But by where? The terrace doors were shut, I said, and the side windows latched. Sir Alistair returned, breathing hard. Police are coming. This is damnable. Strangled like a common thief. A thief, yes, Poirot said softly, but perhaps not common. Miss Marsh pressed a hand to her mouth. The necklace. She surprised someone stealing it. Poirot walked to the velvet pedestal. The tray was overturned.
Yet the velvet was not torn. He bent, sniffed, and straightened. Someone handled the stones with bare fingers, he observed. You see the faint misting here. But anyone might have touched it in a struggle, I protested. Just so, and yet where is the struggle? Poirot gestured to the fern beside the pedestal. Its fronds stood unruffled. Nothing is broken. The soil is not scattered. It is too neat for a sudden fight. Dr. Cartwright rose from the body. Time of death is recent. In 5 to 10 minutes. Bruises on the throat consistent with manual strangulation. No other injuries. Julian flung out his hands. You speak as if she allowed herself to be murdered. Poirot's voice was gentle. Perhaps she was first. Occupied. Occupied with what? With trust, said Poirot. Sir Alistair's face reddened. Are you implying one of us did this? I imply nothing, I observe. When we arrived, the doors were closed from within, yes? Who closed them? A tiny silence followed. In truth, when Julian bolted first, the conservatory doors were already shut. I had assumed without thinking that they had remained so. Julian said quickly, and they're usually kept shut at night. Drafts. Poirot looked at him. Usually? Even when her ladyship goes alone to her safe? Julian faltered. I don't know. Poirot's gaze shifted to Miss Marsh. Mademoiselle, when Lady Ashbourne left the dining room, did she take anything besides her key? Miss Marsh blinked, dragged from grief. No.
You only her handbag. She said she would return at once. And yet, Poirot murmured, she did not. Footsteps sounded in the hall. A stout inspector entered with a younger constable, followed by the butler and a distraught housekeeper. Inspector Rudd took in the scene with practised eyes. Right, everyone stays put. Doctor, she's dead? Dr. Cartwright inclined his head. Yes. The inspector's gaze dropped to the necklace on the tiles. Robbery gone wrong, then? Poirot's moustaches bristled.
Perhaps, Inspector, but robbery is often untidy. This is arranged. Rudd looked sharply at him. And you are? Hercule Poirot. The inspector's manner shifted. I've heard of you. London? A Belgian, Inspector, Poirot corrected pleasantly. But yes. Rudd cleared his throat. Then tell me which of these people had cause to kill Lady Ashbourne. Sir Alistair gave a laugh that sounded too loud. Poirot, however, studied faces rather than objects, Julian's rigid shoulders, and Miss Marsh's glance toward the safe, the doctor's controlled breathing. We begin, Poirot said, with what she told her secretary. She believed she knew who killed him. Rudd's pencil paused. Killed who? Miss Marsh's lips trembled. Lord Ashbourne, her husband. Rudd frowned. Accident, wasn't it? That is what the inquest concluded, Miss Marsh whispered. Poirot said softly. But Lady Ashbourne did not conclude so. Julian burst out. My uncle fell from a cliff in Cornwall. There was fog. Everyone knows what was said, Poirot interrupted, polite as a blade. Not everyone knows what is true. Rudd turned to Julian. You were there? Julian's mouth opened, then shut. No, I was abroad. And you, Miss Marsh? I was not employed then, Sir Alistair said too quickly. I met Ashbourne only once, in town. Dr. Cartwright adjusted his spectacles. I treated him for a sprained wrist years ago, nothing more." Poirot nodded, and as though he had expected precisely those answers. He stepped to the safe set into the conservatory wall. Its door stood ajar. "Inspector," he said, "may I?" Rudd shrugged. "Go ahead, don't make a mess." Poirot used his handkerchief to pull the safe open. Inside lay a slim packet of papers tied with ribbon, a small pearl-handled revolver, and an envelope sealed with red wax. On the wax was pressed a crest. Beneath it were the words, "For Hercule Poirot, if I am silenced." But Miss Marsh gave a strangled sound. Julian stared as if the air had been struck from him. Inspector Rudd swore under his breath. Poirot lifted the envelope with the delicacy of a confession. He held it up so the inspector could see the seal intact. "Do not open it yet," Poirot told him. "First, you will have your men guard the exits, and you will keep our friends together. No one leaves, no one telephones. The mind that kills improvises. We must not give it time." "Now," he said, very quiet, "we see that her ladyship feared not a thief, but a murderer, and she expected the murderer to be among those who smiled at her table tonight." Inspector Rudd handled the sealed envelope as though it might sting. "We'll open it in the morning," he said, aiming at firmness. "Proper light, proper procedure." Poirot's eyes did not blink. "Inspector, the killer has already used the darkness once. If he fears what the letter contains, he will not wait politely for your daylight." Rudd hesitated, and then jerked his chin at the constable. "Post a man at each exit. No one leaves the house. Butler, library." The library, with its oak panels and heavy curtains, seemed to swallow sound. The guests sat in a strained semicircle. Miss Marsh gripped her portfolio to her chest. Sir Alistair demanded brandy and drank it too quickly. Julian Trent stood by the mantel, hands clenched, while Dr. Cartwright folded himself into an armchair with medical neatness, as if ready to be cross-examined like a symptom. "Poirot murmured to me already, Hastings. They arrange themselves. The innocent seeks comfort. The guilty seeks control." Inspector Rudd began. "Lady Ashbourne left dinner at 9:10. The scream was about 9:15. I want to know who left the dining room in between." Sir Alistair raised 2 fingers. "I stepped out for a cigarette, briefly." Julian's laugh cracked. "Of course you did." Rudd's pencil scratched. "Where?" "West veranda. Or ask the butler." The butler confirmed it without emotion. Poirot asked, "And you met no one?" Sir Alistair's eyes darted. "No one." "Dr. Cartwright?" "I remained at table." "Miss Marsh?" "At table. I was speaking with Mrs. Draycott." Julian threw in, "I was there too." Rudd turned his gaze on Julian. "You're the heir." "So they keep telling me. You and Lady Ashbourne quarrel?" Julian's colour rose. "She treated me like a child with sticky fingers. Tonight she hinted she intended to set matters right. She always spoke like that." Poirot's voice was mild. "Did she say what matters?" "No, only that I must not make it worse." He swallowed. "Then she went to that blasted safe." Miss Marsh's face tightened at the word safe. Poirot saw it at once. "Mademoiselle," he said, "your mistress spoke to you before dinner." Miss Marsh nodded, tears gathering. "She said she knew who killed Lord Ashbourne. She said tomorrow it would end." Rudd paused. Lord Ashbourne, the husband who fell in Cornwall, that was ruled an accident." Poirot's eyes were bright, almost gentle. "Lady Ashbourne did not believe in accidents, Inspector." Dr. Cartwright spoke smoothly. "Grief can distort judgment." "Or sharpen it," Poirot replied. "Tell me, Doctor, Strangling is not a moment of panic. One must continue to press. One must choose to finish. A silence settled, pricked only by the fire. Rudd drew the envelope from his pocket and broke the wax. "Right, I will have it now." He unfolded the paper and read aloud, slower, as the meaning landed. "If you read this, Monsieur Poirot, I have been prevented from speaking. Lord Ashbourne did not fall by accident. He was lured to the cliff path and pushed. The person who did it is among my guests this weekend. I have arranged the necklace display as bait because greed is a lever and guilt is a spring. If I am killed, do not trust the first explanation offered, or watch for the one eager to conclude." Rudd looked up, displeased. "No name?" Poirot lifted a smaller slip pinned to the sheet. "But she adds this, Inspector. The one who killed my husband is not the one who planned his death." Julian stared. "Two of them?" Poirot's fingers smoothed the paper as if calming it. "At least two. There is the hand that pushes, and the mind that arranges the push." Sir Alistair set his glass down with a hard click.
That's theatrical." Poirot's gaze settled on him with quiet insistence. "Perhaps. But tell me, Sir Alistair, why were you so quick to call Lady Ashbourne's death a robbery?" Sir Alistair's jaw worked. "Because the necklace was scattered." "And yet the necklace was left," Poirot said. "Diamonds are not discarded by thieves, unless the diamonds were never the purpose." Inspector Rudd rubbed his forehead, the authority draining into fatigue. "All right."
"Or we've got a suspicious old death and a fresh one. The letter says watch the person eager to conclude. Who here has been eager?" No one answered. Even Julian's breath seemed to stop. Poirot's voice softened again, the way it did when he prepared to place a pin precisely. "Mademoiselle Marsh, your mistress went to the conservatory safe to retrieve documents, yes?" Miss Marsh nodded helplessly. "A packet. She said she would bring it." "And she did not." Poirot's eyes flicked to Rudd.
"So either she never reached the papers, or someone ensured she could not remove them." Rudd jerked upright. "Constable, back to the conservatory. Now! Doctor, Captain, you too!" We moved quickly through the dim corridor, our footsteps muffled by carpet, the house suddenly full of listening corners. In the conservatory, Lady Ashbourne's body lay beneath a sheet, the glass panes reflecting our lantern light like anxious eyes. Rudd strode to the wall safe and hauled it open. The ribbon lay inside.
All cut cleanly, the packet of papers was gone. Poirot leaned in, sniffed once, and nodded as though confirming a private suspicion. "A knife, sharp and recent," he murmured. "And someone with steady hands." Rudd swore again, louder. From the hall came a faint creak, like a floorboard yielding carefully. Then, at once, silence. In that silence I felt watched. The creak had come from the corridor beyond the conservatory doors, where the carpet ended and older boards began. When Inspector Rudd swung his lantern toward it, the light caught only the glossy leaves of a potted palm. "Who's there?" he barked. No reply. Poirot raised a hand. "Not like that, Inspector. The frightened rabbit does not come when you shout." Rudd signalled to the constable to take the left passage while he took the right. I followed. Poirot drifted behind, unhurried. Halfway down we found a smear of damp mud, oval and faint, pressed into the edge of a runner. Rudd knelt, touched it, and sniffed. Garden soil." Poirot's eyes travelled to the tall sash at the end. It was shut, latch straight, but on the sill lay a dusting of pale grit. "Not garden," he murmured. "Gravel from the drive. Someone went outside recently, then returned inside. And now he is careful." We reached Lady Ashbourne's little office. The door stood ajar. Rudd pushed it open, lantern raised. The room was neat, blotter centered on desk, inkstand aligned, chairs squared. Yet the middle drawer was pulled out an inch, and on the blotter lay a single page torn from a ledger. A fountain pen sat uncapped, its nib still wet. Poirot did not touch, he only looked. "The pen bleeds still, this was opened within minutes." He nodded at the torn edge. "And the tear is too straight." Lady Ashbourne was precise. Rudd's face darkened. "After the murder, then?" "I suggest the murderer returned for the papers from the safe," Poirot said, "and found he needed more."
"The mind that arranges does not leave loose ends." The constable appeared, breathless. "Inspector, a window on the stair landing is unlatched." "Guard it!" Rudd snapped. Poirot's gaze returned to the desk. With 2 fingers, he lifted the blotter's corner and revealed a pale rectangle where something had been removed, outlined in dust. "A photograph," I said. "Or a letter that lay there long," Poirot replied. Rudd jabbed at the torn ledger page. "What's this? Accounts?" Poirot leaned nearer.
It reading without touching. Not accounts, names. Lady Ashbourne's handwriting marched in disciplined lines. A list of people, dates, places. Rudd read, slow and unwilling. Trent, Marseille, June 1932. Brooke, Penzance, September 1932. Cartwright, St. Ives, September 1932. Marsh, London, October 1932. September 1932, close to Lord Ashbourne's death in Cornwall. Julian's name? Sir Alister's, the doctor's, even Miss Marsh's, though she had not been employed then. Rudd's eyes narrowed.
"Yeah, that can't be coincidence." "No," Poirot murmured. "It is intention." A soft thud came from above, then the scrape of something moved an inch. Rudd spun. In that instant I understood. Our enemy was not outside the circle, but moving within it, listening. Rudd charged for the stairs. I followed. Poirot came last, light-footed. On the landing, the window stood open a hand's breadth. Cold air pressed in, smelling of wet stone. The constable pointed down to the gravel. Someone jumped. "Be prints." Below, pale stones showed darker marks leading toward the yew hedge, then vanishing where the path met lawn. Rudd swore. "He's gone." Poirot shook his head. "Not gone, only moved, and he carried something he could not leave behind." "What?" Rudd demanded. "The packet from the safe," Poirot said. "Perhaps also the photograph that lived beneath the blotter." Yet he left the list. Why? Because he did not see it. In haste, he took what he knew to be dangerous and missed what he did not understand. Rudd's mouth tightened. "Or he wants us to see it." Poirot's smile was thin. "Ah, Inspector, now you use your grey cells." We returned to the office. Poirot stood before the desk, hands folded. "The drawer was opened," he said, "but not searched. If one searches, one rummages. Here, one plucks." He pointed to the inner corner of the drawer where the lining was slightly lifted. "Under there, perhaps." She hid what she feared most. Rudd used his pencil to lift the felt. Beneath was a small envelope, its flap bent from handling. He slid it out and tipped it. A narrow strip of paper fell into his palm. On it, in Lady Ashbourne's hand, were 4 words: "He will confess tonight." Poirot's eyes closed briefly. "So," he said, very softly, "she was not only baiting a thief, she was arranging a confession, and someone could not permit that confession to occur." Outside, beyond the dark glass,
The night remained perfectly still, too still as if waiting for the next mistake. Inspector Rudd read the strip again, then looked at each of us as though weighing whether we were all mad. "Confess to what?" To pushing Ashbourne? To stealing this necklace? To both, perhaps, Poirot said. Or to something that led to both. The confession was to be tonight, during your gathering, Inspector, in front of witnesses. That is why she chose this weekend. Rudd's voice roughened. Then which one was meant to speak? Poirot's gaze went to the list on the blotter. The one whose name she watched most closely at dinner. Tell me, Hastings, who kept glancing at the conservatory door? I thought back. Sir Alistair's restless eyes, the doctor's composed stillness, Julian's defiance. Yet it was Miss Marsh, pale and trembling, who had looked again and again, as if waiting for a signal. Before I could answer, footsteps sounded below, quick, light, then, abruptly, careful. But someone was coming up the stairs without a lantern right now. Poirot lifted a finger to his lips. Inspector Rudd motioned us back from the door, lantern hooded, so the light would not spill. The steps continued, 1, 2, then paused on the landing, as if the person outside were listening for our breathing. A shadow crossed the frosted pane in the upper half of the office door. Then a soft knock. "Inspector," came a woman's voice, controlled but strained.
"'Tis Evelyn Marsh!" Rudd yanked the door open and swung the lantern up. Miss Marsh stood there in a dressing gown thrown over her evening dress, hair loose about her cheeks, her eyes bright with fear that had turned to decision. "You shouldn't be wandering," Rudd snapped. "We've got someone moving about this house." "I know," she said. Her gaze flicked past him to Poirot and clung there. "That is why I came. I could not stay in my room another minute." Poirot stepped forward, palms open.
Mademoiselle, you have information." She swallowed. "Yes. And if I do not speak now, I may never speak." Rudd eyed her. "All right. Inside, and quickly." She entered and closed the door with deliberate care, as if she feared the click might summon a listener. Poirot watched her hands. "You were the one who looked at the conservatory door," Poirot said gently. Miss Marsh's chin lifted. "Because I knew she meant to confront someone there. She told me this afternoon, before you arrived, that she would force the truth out of him." "Out of him?" Poirot repeated. "So it is a man?" Miss Marsh's mouth tightened. "She believed it was a man who pushed Lord Ashbourne," Rudd barked. "Believed? Either she knew or she didn't." "She knew enough to be afraid," Miss Marsh said. "But today she became resolved." Poirot's eyes softened. "Why today?" "Because she received a letter." Miss Marsh hesitated. It then reached into the pocket of her gown and produced a folded sheet. "I found it in the wastepaper basket of her dressing room after dinner. I know I should not have, but she was dead, and I thought it might matter." Rudd snatched it, but Poirot's hand stopped him, not touching, merely guiding. "With care, Inspector, the paper remembers." Rudd unfolded it on the desk. The handwriting was masculine, slanted and forceful. Miss Marsh read, her voice scarcely above a whisper.
You cannot keep digging, Margaret. The cliff remembers, but people forget. Stop, or you will force my hand." Rudd's eyes narrowed. No signature. "There was one," Miss Marsh said. "She tore it off. I saw the torn piece on the floor earlier, but it was gone when I returned." Poirot's gaze flicked to the lifted drawer lining. Someone came for the torn signature. "Yes," Miss Marsh breathed. "Because the signature would name him." Rudd's voice turned sharp. "Which of them wrote it? Trent?"
"Brooke? Cartwright?" Miss Marsh shook her head miserably. "I do not know. She would not show me the whole of her evidence. She said the less I knew, the safer I would be. Poirot nodded. And yet she wrote your name on her list. Miss Marsh's cheeks flushed. Because of Cornwall? In 1932, I was in London with a situation unpleasant. Lady Ashbourne helped me, quietly. Later I learned it was also discretion. What were you running from? Rudd demanded. Miss Marsh met his eyes. You'll be from a man who enjoyed ruining reputations. If you want the name, ask Sir Alistair Brooke. I felt the air thicken as if the room had absorbed smoke. Poirot's face remained unreadable. You accuse him of cruelty, but do you accuse him of murder? I do not know about murder, Miss Marsh said. Only that Lord Ashbourne was going to expose something. Lady Ashbourne told me he discovered a fraud, money moving through charities. He intended to confront the man responsible in Cornwall. Then he died, Poirot murmured. The mind that arranges, the hand that pushes. Rudd leaned over the list again, tapping the September 1932 entries. All three of them in Cornwall at the same time. Miss Marsh nodded, tears shining. Lady Ashbourne traced receipts and names. She believed two men met him on that cliff path, one to argue, one to witness. She thought the witness could be forced to confess. Tonight, Poirot said, and his eyes grew very bright. Miss Marsh whispered. Yes, Rudd's voice dropped. Which one was the witness? Miss Marsh looked at Poirot as if surrendering the last of her strength. She told me only this. The witness is a man who heals people for a living. Dr. Cartwright. Rudd's face hardened. His hand went instinctively toward the door. Poirot, however, did not move. Inspector, he said softly, do not run. The guilty man expects running. Instead, we invite the doctor to us, quietly.
Politely, and we watch his little movements. Miss Marsh's breath hitched. He is kind. He would not. Poirot's voice remained gentle, but iron threaded through it. Kindness, mademoiselle, is sometimes the mask that allows one to come close enough to kill. Rudd hesitated, then nodded once to the constable. Fetch him from the library. No shouting, no warning. The constable vanished. In the pause that followed, the house seemed to lean inward, listening. Somewhere below, a clock ticked.
Poirot picked up his hat from the chair back and set it square as if preparing a stage. Now, he murmured to me, we shall see whether the doctor's hands tremble. Dr. Cartwright entered with the constable at his shoulder, looking as though he had risen from an armchair rather than been summoned under suspicion. His hair was still smooth, his spectacles clean, and his expression arranged into professional concern. Inspector, he said.
I understand you require me. Rudd kept the lantern angled, so the light struck the doctor's hands. They were steady. Sit, Rudd ordered. Dr. Cartwright sat, crossing one ankle over the other. This is most irregular. Lady Ashbourne is dead and we should be preserving calm. Poirot leaned on the desk, eyes fixed on the doctor's face. We preserve truth, monsieur. Calm is secondary. Miss Marsh stood near the wall, pale but resolute. She did not look at the doctor. Rudd said,
You were in Cornwall in September 1932. I was, a medical conference in Penzance. You were treated as a guest by Lord Ashbourne. Cartwright's brows lifted a fraction. I dined with him once. He was a benefactor to certain rural clinics. Poirot's voice was mild. And you walked with him on the cliff path near St. Ives. The doctor's gaze flicked, quick as a pulse, to Poirot. I did not. Poirot nodded as if he had expected the denial. What, then you will not mind if I ask, what do you remember of the fog that day? Cartwright's mouth tightened. There is often fog on the Cornish coast. Mais oui, Poirot agreed. But you answer like a man who was there. Cartwright gave a thin smile. Monsieur Poirot, are you suggesting I cannot speak of fog unless I have walked through it? Poirot's gaze dropped to the doctor's right thumb. Tell me, doctor, do you bite your nails? Cartwright looked down despite himself. At the thumb showed a faint crescent of broken skin. A habit, the doctor said curtly. A habit, Poirot repeated, that returns when the mind is strained. Rudd leaned forward. Where were you between 9:10 and 9:15 tonight? At the dining table, as I told you. Poirot said softly. You rose once. Cartwright's eyes sharpened. To fetch my cigarettes. From where? Poirot asked. From the sideboard. Poirot's head tilted. The sideboard was behind Julian Trent's chair. It did not see you rise. Strange. Julian, hovering in the doorway, snapped, I was watching the wine, not the doctor. Poirot addressed the doctor again. Lady Ashbourne expected a confession tonight. Cartwright's lips parted slightly. Confession? She believed you would speak, Poirot said, because you are a man who heals. Miss Marsh flinched but kept silent. Cartwright's composure held, yet a faint colour rose along his cheekbones. Lady Ashbourne was overwrought, and grief can breed fantasies, Rudd said. We found her safe opened. The packet of papers is missing. Someone returned for it after her death. Cartwright spread his hands. Then someone among you is the thief. Poirot smiled gently. You see how quickly you offer conclusions. You wish the world to be simple. The doctor's voice sharpened. I wish it to be factual. Very good, Poirot said. Then let us be factual. When you examined Lady Ashbourne,
but you touched her throat, as a physician must. And you noticed bruising, Poirot continued. Tell me, did you also notice the faint red mark on her left wrist? Cartwright blinked. There was, yes, a pressure mark. A grip, Poirot said. From someone who held her as she listened. Someone she did not fight. Rudd stared. What are you saying? That she expected to meet a person she trusted, Poirot replied. She was not surprised until the last moment. Cartwright gave a short laugh.
This is theatre. Poirot's voice remained light. Then you will not mind the final prop, Inspector, the revolver from the safe. Rudd drew it from his pocket, wrapped in a cloth. What about it? Poirot's eyes never left the doctor. Lady Ashbourne kept it for protection, but she also kept it to threaten the man she confronted, a man who, when threatened, might confess or might kill. Cartwright's breathing changed, so slightly I might have missed it if Poirot had not been watching for precisely that change. Poirot said quietly, Doctor, did you know the revolver was there? No, Cartwright said at once. And yet, Poirot murmured, your eyes went to the pocket when the inspector mentioned the safe. The body speaks faster than the tongue. Cartwright's gaze hardened. You are guessing. Poirot nodded. I am observing. And now, I will offer you one more fact. Lady Ashbourne wrote, he will confess tonight. If she meant you, she must have arranged it. How? With a message? He glanced at Miss Marsh. Mademoiselle, did her ladyship send a note after dinner? Miss Marsh hesitated, then nodded. To the doctor, I saw the maid carry it. Rudd snapped. Where is that note? Cartwright's hand went to his breast pocket, then stopped halfway, as though he had caught himself mid-step. The movement lasted less than a second, but it was enough. Poirot's eyes flashed. Merci, Poirot said softly. That is all. Inspector Rudd rose so abruptly his chair scraped. Hand it over, he said. Cartwright's smile returned, too smooth. You accuse me on a twitch of the hand. Rudd seized the pocket anyway. It was empty. Then you've destroyed it, Rudd growled. Poirot shook his head. No, he has hidden it. There is a difference. He turned to the constable. Search the doctor's room and the wastebaskets on the stair. I do it at once, quietly. Inspector Rudd kept Dr. Cartwright in the office, a constable stationed at the door, while the other guests were shepherded back to the library under strict orders. The house had fallen into that peculiar hush which follows a shock, not peace, but the careful silence of people who fear their own footsteps. Poirot drew me aside into the corridor. "Hastings," he murmured, "do you notice what is missing from the doctor's indignation?" "Missing?" "He is offended, yes. Yeah, but he is not frightened. The innocent man, when accused of murder, fears the stain upon his name. The guilty man fears only the hole in his plan." Before I could reply, the butler appeared, pale and perspiring. "Monsieur Poirot, Inspector, if you please. There is, another matter." Rudd snapped. "Speak up." "It is Mr. Trent, sir. He insists he must see you at once. He says he knows something about the papers." Julian Trent was waiting in the smoking room, hands thrust deep into his pockets, and his eyes glittering with the sort of reckless courage that comes from drink and desperation. When he saw Poirot, he spoke quickly as if afraid his nerve might fail. "My aunt kept a packet," he said. "Old letters. She used them like a whip. If they've gone missing, it's because someone's afraid of them. I may know where she hid the copies." Rudd's suspicion hardened. "You've got copies of her evidence?" Julian shook his head. "Not me. She told me once, months ago, that if anything happened to her, the truth would still surface. She said it was in the music." "The music?" I repeated, puzzled. Julian flushed. "In the piano. She had a false bottom built into the bench, for her charity lists, her jewels, whatever she wanted hidden without a safe." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "And you did not mention this before?" Julian's laugh came out bitter. "Before she was alive? I thought it was just another of her dramatic precautions. Now—" He looked away.
Now I don't know who to trust." Rudd barked to the constable. "Fetch a screwdriver, and no one touch that bench until I'm there." They went together to the drawing-room where the grand piano stood, lid closed as if sleeping. The screwdriver arrived, and Rudd, with clumsy impatience, loosened the brass fittings beneath the bench. The false panel lifted with a faint sigh of wood. Inside lay a slim folder wrapped in oilcloth, and beneath it a small velvet pouch. Rudd took the folder first.
Poirot did not touch, only watched. The inspector opened it and stared down at a neat bundle of carbon copies, each page typed, each one headed. "Statement of facts regarding the death of Lord Ashbourne." "Good God," Rudd breathed. "She made a whole dossier?" Poirot's gaze went to the velvet pouch. "Inspector, also that." Rudd tipped it out. A signet ring rolled onto the bench, heavy gold engraved with the Ashbourne crest. On the inside band were scratched two initials, L.C. Dr. Lionel Cartwright. Rudd's face darkened to a dangerous purple. "That's it. He's finished." Poirot's voice was calm. "Not finished, Inspector, only tightened. A ring is a clue, yes, but it is also a weapon when placed where it will accuse." Julian stared at it, mouth slightly open. "That can't be his. Why would he leave it?" Poirot corrected gently. "Exactly, monsieur. The guilty man does not drop his own name into the fire." Rudd's eyes flicked to Poirot. You think it's planted?" "I think," Poirot said, "that the mind which arranges is active still. If Lady Ashbourne wished the doctor to confess tonight, She must have had leverage. Perhaps this ring was part of it, evidence of a meeting, a bargain, a bribe. And if the ring now appears in the hiding place, it may be to direct your anger quickly. Rudd's jaw worked. And the papers? Poirot nodded toward the typed pages. Read the first. Not all, only the first paragraph. Rudd did, aloud, his voice flattening as he went. On the morning of September the 12th, 1932, my husband received a telegram requesting he meet Sir Alistair Brooke at the Cliff Path, above St. Ives at 11. He went, taking with him Dr. Lionel Cartwright, whom he trusted as a witness to a financial disclosure. Sir Alistair's name fell into the room like a stone. Julian swore under his breath. "And the next line," Poirot said. Rudd continued. At 11:15, I received a telephone call from a man whose voice I recognized, telling me my husband had slipped in the fog. The voice was calm, too calm. "Recognized?" I echoed. Poirot's eyes lifted, intent. "Who, Hastings, in this house, has a voice one recognizes at once?" Julian, without thinking, blurted, "Brooke! He's always on the wireless. Speeches, interviews." At that moment, from somewhere above, came a sharp crack. Then the unmistakable shatter of glass. Rudd spun toward the sound. Poirot did not move. He only closed his eyes as though hearing the next note of a familiar melody. "The doctor's room," he said softly, "or the stair landing window again. The rabbit makes his second dash." Rudd charged for the hall. We followed, boots hammering on the runner. Halfway up the stairs, the constable shouted, "Inspector, there's smoke!" A thin grey ribbon curled from beneath Dr. Cartwright's door. Rudd kicked it open. Flames licked a wastebasket. Poirot seized the poker, smothered them, and drew out paper. Poirot's hand moved with astonishing speed for a man so fastidious. He used the poker to lift the charred bundle from the wastebasket, laid it on the hearthstone, and tapped it apart as though dissecting a specimen. Inspector Rudd, coughing, stamped the last ember flat. "Who started this?" Rudd snarled. The constable hovered in the doorway. "Sir, Dr. Cartwright's not here." Rudd spun on him. "You were to keep him under guard." "I did, sir, in the office."
"But then you sent me to search the baskets and—" Poirot's voice cut in, gentle but sharp. "The doctor was not in this room. Someone came here to burn something and to make you believe he did it." Rudd's eyes narrowed. "And the broken glass?" Poirot nodded toward the window. One pane was fractured inward. "A stone from outside. Someone wished you to come quickly before the paper became ash." He prodded the bundle again. Beneath the blackened outer sheet, a corner remained legible.
Poirot leaned close. "It is the note," he murmured, "the one Lady Ashbourne sent." Rudd reached, then halted at Poirot's raised palm. Even half a sentence may change the whole. The surviving words were few but clear. "Bring the ring. We speak at 10. If you refuse, I go to the police." Rudd exhaled hard. So she threatened him. Or she threatened someone through him, Poirot corrected. A ring is proof of a bargain. How one uses it to force a man to sit and listen. "And someone tried to destroy the note," Rudd said. "Someone," Poirot agreed. From the corridor came the butler's strained voice. "Inspector, Sir Alistair Brooke, he has gone from the library." Rudd swore and pushed past us. The hall lamps threw long shadows over the portraits. In the library, Miss Marsh and Julian stood rigid, the committee ladies huddled together. Sir Alistair's chair was empty. His brandy glass still held a little. He said he needed air," Julian said bitterly. "Then he walked out." Rudd barked. "Doors, windows, check the veranda." Poirot's gaze paused on the mantel clock. "What time is it, Hastings?" "Nearly 10, I said. Poirot nodded as though a cog had clicked into place. At 10 she meant to speak with someone, and now, at 10, someone means not to speak, but to act. Rudd strode to the west veranda. The French doors were ajar. On the stone step lay a dark smear of mud, threaded with pale gravel. On leading toward the drive, the constable ran in from the front. "Inspector, a motor car has started." Beyond the hedge, an engine revved. Headlights swept across the yews. Rudd bounded down the steps. "After him!" Poirot did not run. He listened, then pointed not toward the drive, but toward the conservatory path. "Hastings this way." "But Brooke?" "Brooke is bait," Poirot said softly. "The loud movement draws the chase. The quiet movement does the work." We hurried along the side path, skirting the conservatory's dark glass. Inside, the sheeted shape of Lady Ashbourne lay still. Poirot's eyes flicked to the terrace latch. It hung crooked, as if recently handled. He bent, sniffed once, and straightened. "Lavender, starch. A maid?" "Just so," Poirot said. "Someone in service has been used." Ahead, near the small side gate onto the drive, metal clicked against metal. A figure crouched at the lock with a key. Poirot spoke, no louder than courtesy.
Mademoiselle Louise?" The figure froze. A maid straightened slowly, cap askew, face white in the starlight. In her hand was a key and a small parcel wrapped in oilcloth. I was told," she stammered. "Sir Alistair said take it to the car. He said it was charity papers." Poirot's eyes rested on the parcel. "And you believed him?" Tears shone on her cheeks. "He is a gentleman. He said Lady Ashbourne asked for it." Poirot's tone remained gentle. "Lady Ashbourne is beyond asking now."
"Hey, give me the parcel." The maid clutched it. "If I do, he will ruin me." Poirot's voice cooled, suddenly hard. "If you do not, you will be ruined by murder. Choose." Her fingers loosened. Poirot took the parcel and with his handkerchief unwrapped it. Inside lay the missing packet from the safe, papers tied with ribbon, and beneath them a small photograph. Poirot held it to the starlight. A cliff path in fog, 3 men in dark coats. One was Lord Ashbourne, another was Sir Alistair Brooke. But the third, half-turned, was Dr. Cartwright. Poirot's eyes lifted. So the witness was real, and now the witness is being framed, or silenced. Behind us, the motorcar's engine rose in pitch, then faded toward the main road. Poirot tucked the photograph away with exquisite care. "Hastings," he said, "we must find the doctor before the mind that arranges decides to remove the hand that pushed." We brought the maid back through the side door and left her with the butler, are ordered to speak only to Inspector Rudd. Poirot did not glance after her. His mind had already leapt ahead. We climbed the back stairs 2 at a time. Cartwright's room stood open, bed turned down, his medical bag gone. On the washstand, a glass ring marked where a tumbler had been lifted in haste. Poirot touched nothing, only pointed. "He has been warned," he murmured. Then, from below, a sound like a muffled cough floated up, followed by the scrape of shoes on tile. Oh, Poirot's eyes went to the conservatory. "Down," he said. "Now!" Poirot and I slipped down the back stairs so quickly that my lungs burned. The house seemed to hold its breath. Ahead, the conservatory door stood a fraction open, and from within came the faint rasp of someone trying not to be heard. Poirot stopped me with a touch, listened, then pushed the door wider with his handkerchief. Inside, The gaslights were low, but the moon poured through the glass roof in a cold sheet. The white-covered shape on the tiles lay unmoving. Near the display pedestal, half in shadow, a man was on his knees. Dr. Cartwright's spectacles glinted as he fumbled with the latch of a low cabinet beneath the pedestal. He started when Poirot spoke. "Bonsoir, docteur?" Cartwright turned, and for an instant his calm mask cracked. He rose too quickly, one hand behind his back. "Hercule Poirot," he said, voice tight. "You startled me." "I am sorry," Poirot replied. But not as sorry as Lady Ashbourne." Cartwright swallowed. "I came to retrieve my bag. I left it in here earlier." Poirot's gaze moved to the cabinet. "Your bag is not there." Cartwright's hand came forward. In it was a folded sheet, Lady Ashbourne's typed statement, torn from the dossier. "Then perhaps I came for this," he said. "To understand why my name is dragged into madness." Poirot's eyes were almost pitying. "Doctor, you are in danger." Cartwright laughed once, harshly. "From whom?"
"Yeah, your inspector? Your insinuations?" "From the one who arranged the push," Poirot said softly. "He cannot allow the witness to live once the picture exists." Cartwright's face tightened. "Picture?" Poirot did not answer. Instead, he stepped closer, very slowly. The doctor backed a pace, then another, until his heel brushed the velvet tray stand. A click sounded from behind the palms. A voice, low, controlled, spoke from the darkness. "Don't move. I am Doctor." Sir Alistair Brooke stepped into the moonlight, holding the pearl-handled revolver from the safe. His expression was not wild, it was precise, as though he had rehearsed this scene and disliked interruptions. My blood turned to ice. "Brooke!" He gave me a polite nod. "Captain, Monsieur Poirot, you're inconveniently perceptive." Poirot's hands spread. "Sir Alistair, you take the revolver, you come for the witness. It is logical." Brooke's mouth twitched. "Logical is what I pay for." It's what Lady Ashbourne failed to understand. She thought she could threaten men who have built their lives on discretion." Cartwright spoke, hoarse. "You wrote that letter?" Brooke's eyes flicked to him. "I wrote many letters. Tonight you will do something useful." Poirot's voice remained mild. "You wish him to confess, so you may blame him and be free." Brooke chuckled. "I wish him to disappear. Confession is for the sentimental." He raised the revolver slightly. Cartwright's hands lifted.
"I'm trembling now." Poirot sighed. "And Lady Ashbourne, she died because she tried to force you to face what you did." Brooke's eyes hardened. "She died because she surprised me. I meant to take her papers. She grabbed for this, so I stopped her." Cartwright whispered, "You strangled her." Brooke's smile thinned. Quickly, efficiently. She was stubborn, but not strong. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And Lord Ashbourne?" For the first time, Brooke's composure faltered by a hair. Your little grey cells won't help you there." Poirot nodded. "You arranged the meeting, but you did not push him?" Brooke's eyes glittered. "No, that was the doctor. His hands are clean now, aren't they?" Cartwright made a choking sound. "I didn't push, he slipped. Alistair, you know—" Brooke's laugh was soft. "He slipped because you stepped aside. You saw him stumble near the edge and you did nothing. That is a kind of push." Poirot's voice dropped. "And you made him believe he had killed."
"Hey, so he would obey you forever?" Brooke's expression eased, satisfied. "Exactly." The revolver swung toward Poirot. "Now, monsieur, you will step away. And you, Hastings, will be sensible." Poirot's eyes flicked, not to the gun, but to the conservatory door where the curtain shifted almost imperceptibly. He smiled faintly. In England, sir, interruptions are inevitable. Brooke frowned. What are you? The door burst open. Inspector Rudd and 2 constables rushed in with lanterns, flooding the room with harsh light. Brooke spun, revolver jerking upward, but one constable struck his arm. The shot went wild, cracking a pane above us. Glass tinkled like ice. Rudd slammed Brooke against the pedestal and wrenched the gun away. Sir Alistair Brooke, you're under arrest for the murder of Lady Ashbourne. Brooke's face was pale, but his voice stayed smooth. You have no proof? Poirot lifted the oilcloth packet slightly from beneath his coat. On the contrary, we have her papers.
Her photograph, your attempt to burn the note, and now your revolver in your hand. Rudd cuffed him. And a witness. Cartwright sank onto the tiles, shaking. His eyes went to the sheeted body nearby, and I saw he was not only afraid, he was ashamed. Poirot crouched beside him. You will speak now, Doctor, he said softly. Not for the inspector, but for your own soul. Tell us what happened on the cliff exactly, and who stood where. Cartwright's lips worked soundlessly. Then, as if a dam broke, and he nodded. He showed me the accounts, he whispered. Brooke said it would ruin charities, ruin me, and when Ashbourne turned, the fog swallowed him. Poirot straightened, eyes shining. Good, he said. And tomorrow we gather everyone, no more hiding again. Inspector Rudd marched Sir Alistair Brooke out of the conservatory with a constable on either side, while another man stood guard over the shattered pane and the revolver sealed in a cloth. The house, roused by the gunshot, had begun to stir. Doors opened along the corridor, frightened faces peered out, and the butlers whispering instructions moved like a tide. Poirot remained beside Dr. Cartwright until the trembling in the man's hands eased enough for him to stand. You will not faint, Doctor, Poirot said gently. If you faint, you escape. And tonight, we do not escape. Cartwright pressed a hand to his mouth. I never meant... No, Poirot interrupted softly. You meant not to choose.
That is also a choice. Rudd returned, jaw set. He'll be held in the study till morning. Then we take him to Guildford. Now, Poirot, are we finished? It looks straightforward. Brooke strangled her for the papers and tried to shoot the doctor, open and shut. Poirot's eyes rested on the sheeted body. Straightforward, Inspector, is often the word one says when one wishes to sleep. Rudd's face reddened. You heard him admit it. I heard him boast, Poirot corrected. Oh, and I heard him accuse the doctor of pushing Lord Ashbourne. Yet even in his boasting he was careful. He spoke of stopping her, of taking papers, of efficiency. He did not speak of love or rage. He spoke like a man managing a problem. And that means what? Rudd demanded. That Lady Ashbourne was not his only problem, Poirot said. There is still the second line of her warning. The one who killed is not the one who planned. Tonight, you have caught the planner.
Oh, but who is the hand? Rudd's stare sharpened. You still think Brooke didn't push Ashbourne? Poirot nodded. He arranged the meeting. He wrote the telegram. He made the trap. But at the cliff, there was fog, yes. Also a third presence, fear. Brooke's fear was of exposure. The pusher's fear was of something more intimate, the collapse of a life built on being trusted. Cartwright looked up, eyes wet. I didn't push him, Poirot. I swear it. He slipped. Poirot's tone remained calm. Always tell me the exact positions. Cartwright swallowed. We were on the narrow path above the drop. Brooke stood nearer the inland side. Lord Ashbourne was between us, showing a folder, arguing. I was behind, a pace. Brooke said it would destroy clinics, charities. Ashbourne turned toward the sea, Angry, and he stepped onto loose stones. He went down. "And you?" Poirot asked. "I reached," Cartwright whispered. "I reached, but—" Brooke grabbed my arm. He said,
Let him go." And God help me, I froze. I heard the stones, then nothing. Poirot's eyes closed for a beat. "So the hand did not push, the hand withheld." Rudd snorted. That's manslaughter at worst." Poirot's gaze snapped open. "At worst? Inspector, when a man is held back from saving another, that is murder by omission. But the law may call it something gentler. The heart will not." Cartwright sagged. "He made me believe I'd killed him." "Oui?" Poirot said. And that belief made you his property." Rudd ran a hand over his hair. "Fine. Brooke still planned it, and the doctor's complicit. Where does that leave us?" "Not finished," Poirot said. We walked from the conservatory into the drawing room, where the piano bench still sat open like a mouth. Poirot stood over it and looked down at the dossier again, his mind moving as visibly as a metronome. "Lady Ashbourne set 2 traps," he murmured. "One for Brooke's greed, and one for the doctor's conscience. She expected the conscience to win." Miss Marsh appeared at the doorway, eyes swollen, hands clasped tight. "Is it true?" she asked. "Sir Alistair killed her." Poirot's voice softened. "He killed her, yes." "And my lord?" she whispered. Poirot looked at Dr. Cartwright. "Your lord died because one man planned and another man failed to act." Miss Marsh's shoulders shook, but she did not look away. "Then justice?" Poirot's smile was sad. "Justice, mademoiselle."
Is a word that often arrives too late, but we will do what we can." Inspector Rudd stepped closer, lower voice now. "You said we weren't finished. What else is there?" Poirot pointed to the photograph, now safe in Rudd's pocket. "The photograph proves the meeting. It proves Brooke and the doctor. But Lady Ashbourne's list included another, Julian Trent." Rudd's eyes narrowed. "The heir?" Poirot nodded. "He was abroad, he says. Yet his name appears with Marseille, June 1932. That is not Cornwall. That is preparation." Rudd frowned. "Preparation for what?" Poirot's eyes lifted toward the corridor, where the house slept uneasily. "For inheritance, for desperation, for the moment when a young man learns that money can be borrowed, but scandal cannot," Rudd began. "You suspect?" Poirot raised a hand. "I do not accuse, not yet. But tomorrow, in the final gathering, I will ask Julian Trent why Lady Ashbourne believed he must be watched, and why the ring with Cartwright's initials was hidden where only one member of the family could easily plant it." Rudd exhaled through his nose. "You want everyone in one room?" "Exactly," Poirot said, "because tonight the truth has begun to speak. Tomorrow it will complete its sentence. And when it does, Inspector, you will see that the neatest crimes are stitched with the loosest threads of vanity. Morning did not bring peace to Ashbourne House. It brought clarity. A pale sun filtered through the tall windows of the drawing-room, illuminating faces that had not slept." Inspector Rudd stood near the mantel, composed but watchful. Miss Marsh sat upright despite her fatigue. Dr. Cartwright looked years older than he had the previous evening. Julian Trent paced in restless arcs across the carpet. Sir Alistair Brooke, guarded by a constable, maintained an expression of bored disdain, though the tightness at his jaw betrayed him. And Hercule Poirot alone appeared untouched by the night. His suit was immaculate, his moustaches impeccable. He stood before the piano, hands lightly clasped. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began softly, "we are assembled not only to accuse, but to understand. Lady Ashbourne believed that if she brought you together under one roof, the truth would ripen. She was correct. Julian stopped pacing. "We know the truth," he said sharply. "Brooke killed her." "I can't let my uncle die." Poirot inclined his head. "That is part of the truth, but not all." Inspector Rudd folded his arms. "Go on." Poirot turned first to Sir Alistair Brooke. "You arranged the meeting on the cliff. You feared exposure, financial misconduct hidden behind charitable work. Lord Ashbourne discovered irregularities. You lured him to the path under pretense of discussion." Brooke said nothing. "You brought Dr. Cartwright," Poirot continued, "not merely as witness, but as insurance. A respected physician tied to your clinics, you intended him to observe, to understand what was at stake. You did not plan a push, only pressure." Cartwright flinched. "But Lord Ashbourne did not bend," Poirot said. "He stepped toward the edge in anger. The stones shifted. In that instant, Doctor, you could have saved him." Cartwright's voice cracked. "I know." "You reached," Poirot said gently. "And Sir Alistair stopped you, not by force, but by words. Or let him go." "And you did?" Silence settled, heavy and undeniable. Poirot turned his gaze to Brooke. "You did not push, but you prevented rescue. That is murder in spirit, and in law, perhaps conspiracy." Rudd gave a curt nod. Poirot continued. "Lady Ashbourne suspected this. She gathered evidence quietly. She knew of the telegram, the meeting, the phone call, too calm to be grief, but she lacked one element, confession." Miss Marsh whispered. She believed the doctor would speak." "Oui," Poirot said, "because guilt erodes more swiftly than greed." He paused, then looked slowly toward Julian Trent. But Lady Ashbourne also feared something else. Julian stiffened. "What?" "She feared you," Poirot said quietly. Julian stared. "That's absurd." "Is it?" Poirot asked. "Your name appears in her notes not only for Marseille, but for debts, considerable debts, gambling, speculation, ventures unsuccessful."
Your uncle had begun to restrict your allowance." Julian flushed. "That has nothing to do with—" "On the contrary," Poirot interrupted. "Everything to do with it. When Lord Ashbourne died, you became heir. But Lady Ashbourne controlled the estate. If she exposed Brooke, she might also expose your financial recklessness." Julian's jaw tightened. "I never wanted my uncle dead." "I believe you," Poirot said calmly. "You did not arrange the meeting. You were not in Cornwall that day."
But when you learned what happened, when you understood that Brooke and Cartwright were compromised, you saw opportunity." Julian's eyes flickered. Poirot's voice remained steady. "Last night, when the ring with Cartwright's initials was found hidden in the piano bench, it seemed a perfect piece of evidence. Too perfect. Only a member of the household knew of that hiding place without rummaging." Julian's breath quickened. "You think I planted it?" "I do," Poirot said simply. "After the scream—"
In the confusion, you slipped away briefly. Long enough to take the ring, given to you months ago by Cartwright as a token of gratitude for arranging an introduction, and hide it where it would be discovered." Cartwright looked up sharply. "I did give him a ring, years ago. I had it resized." "And you reported it lost last month," Poirot finished. Rudd's gaze snapped to Julian. "Is that true?" Julian's composure fractured. Yes, but that doesn't prove—" "It proves," Poirot said gently.
"That you intended suspicion to fall wholly on the doctor, with Brooke disgraced and Cartwright accused of both omission and strangulation. You would stand clear, sympathetic nephew, wronged heir." Miss Marsh gasped. Julian's face drained of colour. "I didn't kill her." "No," Poirot agreed. You did not. Sir Alistair strangled Lady Ashbourne when she confronted him in the conservatory. But you saw advantage in her death. Julian sank into a chair, hands shaking. Poirot stepped back slightly, surveying them all. Lady Ashbourne believed knowledge was power. She was correct, but knowledge without immediate action is also danger. She tried to force truth into daylight. Instead, she provoked a cornered man. He turned to Rudd. Inspector, you have before you a planner of murder and a man whose silence became fatal. As for Mr. Trent, his crime is moral, not mortal. Rudd nodded slowly. Brooke will stand trial. The doctor will see what the Crown says. Cartwright bowed his head, and tears falling freely now. Poirot walked toward the window where morning light touched the hedges. You see, mes amis, murder is rarely a single act. It is a chain, a plan, a weakness, a silence. Break one link and life continues. Fail and the chain tightens. He adjusted his cuffs with quiet precision. Miss Marsh approached hesitantly. Monsieur Poirot. Did she know she might die? Poirot's eyes softened. I believe she did, but she preferred danger to injustice. Outside, as the police motor car waited, Sir Alistair Brooke was led away first, his composure finally fractured by the weight of inevitability. Dr. Cartwright followed under guard, not resisting. Julian remained behind, diminished, staring at the piano bench that had nearly secured his future. As Poirot and I stepped onto the gravel drive, the air felt lighter. Well, Poirot, I said, another mystery resolved. He gave me a small, thoughtful smile. Resolved, yes, but not erased. The heart, Hastings, remembers its hesitations. He glanced once more at the glass conservatory, now bright in daylight. The woman who knew the killer, he murmured. She was brave. It is a pity she underestimated how swiftly fear becomes violence. He placed his hat upon his head with exact alignment. Come, mon ami, there are other puzzles, and the little grey cells, they must not grow idle.